Hello, I'm Todd Sunderhouse with Gold Medal Products, and I'm the food technologist. And what I'd like to do today is demonstrate and explain to you the different caramel apple products that we have. It'll be the caramel quick serve dip, and that is for the apple chips. When you go to slice the apple, it remains soft all the time, so you can dip the apples into it. And that's going to be the first product that I'm going to demonstrate. But let me start off by, at the very beginning, on preparing the apples. The apples should be as fresh as possible. They should be cleaned and washed to remove any wax or resin. What's happened in the past, apples are covered with two different products. It's either covered with a paraffin, or it's covered with a shellac or lac or resin. Now, the hot water will clean the apples of the wax. Basically, take the apples, soak it in hot tap water for 10 minutes, dry it off, and the apple will be ready for dipping. If the apple comes up with a very white, almost cloudy frosting coating, that would be the lac or shellac or resins. And in order to remove that, you have to use our product called Apple Prep. And that's 4165. And what that is, it's a food grade alcohol-based solvent to remove the resin. The Apple Prep is reusable. All you have to do is filter out any stems or leaves from the apple and then store it in its container to which it's shipped. So the key secret to having any good dipped apple is to make sure they're washed, clean, dry, and at room temperature. You do not want a cold apple and dip it into a hot product. The caramel will have a tendency to slide off. So let me demonstrate it on the apple hacker, and that's how you do apple chips with the soft serve caramel. This is the apple hacker. This is our heavy duty apple hacker. It's very simple to use. It's one hand use. I simply raise it up. I take the apple, stick it right inside the machine, and then firmly push down so that you get a nice smooth action to cut the apple itself. And it'll simply just core the apple for you. It cuts the apples into nice, even slices. It cores the apple for you so you don't have to core it. And then you take your caramel apple dip, and this is the quick serve caramel apple dip. Arrange the apple so it's a very, very nice symmetric looking figure. You take your caramel apple dip, and this will always be soft, okay? And that's how you tell the caramel apple dip from the regular caramel dip. This will be soft at room temperatures. You can warm this up, you can leave it cold. The colder the days you want, you may want to have a warm one. So simply take the caramel apple dip, pour yourself a nice serving full right into the middle of it so you can dip it right inside. And then as it begins to slowly drain, just give yourself a little pattern on the apple itself, just to make things more eye appealing. That is the caramel apple dip. You can sprinkle nuts on there, you can put marshmallows, whipped cream, or you can just serve it simply as the apple. And as you can see, I can pick up the apple, and the apple will have the caramel in it. And then all I do is just simply dip to get more caramel out of the apple. That's our quick serve caramel apple dip. Now what I'll do is describe the different products used to cover the actual apple with caramel. The first product we have is the Mom's Caramel Dip. This product is a trans fat free product. It is in the plastic tubs to give you a quicker warm-up time. All you have to do is take the lid off, put it in the microwave, warm it up 10 minutes, periodically every 3 minutes stir it, then put it into a double warmer water bath and heat it up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That will be ready for the product to go. That product is trans fat free. The caramel dip, the Mom's Caramel Apple Dip in the number 10 can, is trans fat free, and you heat it up to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. and you warm that up in a double boiler. Comparable to the Mom's Caramel Apple Dip is the Midway's Finest Apple Dip. This also is in a number 10 can, and it's also 180 Fahrenheit warm up to let it be ready to dip the apples in. The next one is the Mom's Block. This is 180 degrees. Now the reason why this is in the block form is for the large copper kettles that are used to make caramel apple. So if you have more of a showmanship and you have the large kettles, the open kettles, this is the particular block to use. It's a 5-pound block, so that way you can add several blocks to your kettle to fill it up in order to do your dip. Now our new product is the chocolate caramel dip. This product, it has a very rich chocolate flavor to it. It has the texture of a traditional caramel dip. We call it the caramel dip so it would have the association not to be just a chocolate dip, but this is a chocolate caramel dip that prepares the exact same as the Midway's and as the Mom's. The chocolate caramel dip is trans fat free. Some of the other items that we're going to introduce to show you all the different equipment that's going to be is we're going to talk about the sticks. And these particular sticks come in two different forms. They come in the paper and they come in the wood. Either stick is very good to use, so we offer it in either forms. I personally like the paper stick, but the wood stick are just as excellent as well. All right. This is what we call our quicker dipper. And as we go through the different things that are needed to make the caramel apple, the quicker dipper is a time speed up, to get the caramel ready for dipping the apples. You put it on the right on top of your number 10 can, and it'll melt into the center of it. And what you're doing is the hot water is going to be on the outside heating up the caramel. The quicker dipper is going to be on the inside. The quicker dipper is in a star shape, and you can see that it's also Teflon coated so that the caramel will slide right off when you pull it out. This will decrease your heating time by about 40 minutes or so. So this will decrease your heating time. And speaking of the heating time, the Mom's Caramel Apple Dip, the Midway's Caramel Apple Dip, the Mom's Chocolate Caramel Apple Dip will take 3 hours in order for it to reach 180 degrees in the double warmer. This is actually the stick setter, and what this does is this sets the stick into the apple. You put the stick point up into the stick setter, and in the stick setter there's a hole, and that's the pilot hole. So this stick goes right into that hole, and that goes all the way down. Now what happens is you'll push down sharply on the stick setter so that the stick goes into the apple. That's a preset depth that will actually go into the apple. So you put the apple on the stick setter, and then you'll snap it down. How you put the stick in the apple is basically your choice, your preference. So what I do is I'll center the apple on the stick setter right inside the shoulder cup, and then you just snap down. And what that does is that sets the stick into the apple. The one thing I will say about the stick setter is that it's a must-have, because if you try to sit there and take an apple and push it in with your hand, Okay, what's going to happen is this whole palm of your hand is going to become red and very sore. So if I sit there and try to push it in, first thing I got to do is gauge how far I can push it in. And then you got to push it in. All right. Then you hope you didn't go through the side of the apple or too deep. Now that we know all the different products that we have the Moms, we have the Midways, we have the Mom's Caramel, we got the Mom's Tub, we got the chocolate caramel apple dip from Mom's. We're going to start demonstrating on how to dip a caramel apple. What we have here is the 4211C high output double boiler. And the number 10 cans itself acts as the insert bowl that goes right into the boiler itself. This is a water boiler, so the can acts as the second bowl. The machine comes with a carriage that goes inside with a spring loaded, so that when you put the locking ring on, it stabilizes your can, so when you dip the apples, your can doesn't bob up and down. Just to show you, we'll mix this up just a little bit, and you can see how nice and fluid that is. That's 180 degrees. I can leave my scoops in there, or you can take them out. This particular product right here will do both. This is the chocolate. Now when you go to dip the apples, you're going to go into the caramel itself all the way until you cover up just about a 1/4 inch or so on the stick. So we'll do this one. And as you can see, depending on how your apple goes and how straight you have, try to set your stick straight. Just makes a much better appearance looking apple. So I'm going to take the apple and I'm going to dip it all the way in, just so it covers up the stick. Then I'm going to give the apple a twirl, and what I'm doing is giving the apple a twirl is I'm going to create the centrifugal force of the spin, or the spin's going to sit there and it's going to throw the excess caramel off. Okay, you don't want to do this very vigorously. You want to do it enough to where it'll bring the caramel off. If you do it vigorously, then you'll be slinging caramel all over the place. Now, the thing about the caramel is, the secret is to get as smallest footprint as possible. And what the footprint is the extra caramel that is actually on the bottom of the apple when you go to put it in the pan. So what I normally do is I'll just sit there and spin my apple a little bit, and I'll scrape some of it off. It looks like I'm scraping off a lot, but basically what's going to happen is the caramel that is on the shoulder here, and you might be able to see how you have it there, is actually going to come down and cover off the bottom of the apple as it sits. At this point, I can either roll it into nuts, I can roll it into jimmies. This one will just leave as a simple caramel apple. We'll dip the chocolate, and the chocolate dipped the same way. You go all the way in, cover up the stick, and then you're going to spin it. And you just spin back and forth in order to get it, and then you're going to sit there right at where the apple shoulder goes down, and you can see right where it starts to go under itself. That's where we're going to cut off a little of the excess caramel or chocolate dip, and we're going to put our second stick right here, and we're just going to let it spin all the way around the apple. And then you can see how that's coming off. Now the thing about the reason why we do this is because we want to get more coverage out of the can. The consumer loves to get a really nice big footprint of caramel, but that could be half an apple that you're giving the consumer for free. We'll do another one, and then we'll roll it in some peanuts. And it's the same technique. And you can see how much excess caramel is actually coming off of the apple. We want to give the consumer a good amount of caramel, a fair amount of caramel, but we don't want to give them so much caramel that we can't afford to take away our yield from the can. These happen to be Granny Smith's apples. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm just cutting off the excess apples, or the excess caramel off the bottom of the apple. At this point, it's a good time to dip it in your peanut. This is a peanut, and what you'll do is you can either dip it in to give yourself a bottom footprint, okay, and we'll leave that one as a bottom footprint. And we'll take this opportunity to make several different apples so that you can get used to seeing the apples being made. Simply put your stick setter in. Now I like to put my stick in where the leaves are, where the stem is, because I eat off the shoulder of the apple. That's just my particular preference. Different parts of the country will do different parts where they set the stick setter. Okay. Now we have a very, very good example of my apple when it hasn't been either cleaned properly or a little bit of the resin then come off. And I sort of did this on purpose just to show you exactly what will happen, because you'll go and you'll sit here and you'll coat this apple, and when your apple isn't cleaned properly, and if there's any resin left, this is exactly what's going to happen. So if your apple has a spot like this, that's because that spot did not have the resin or was not cleaned properly. And there's not a lot you can do about it, especially once you dipped it. So we'll take this one, we'll put it in the confetti type candy coating. We'll put it on the footprint. And what you want to do is you create yourself a well, and you can roll the whole apple in it. You can put anything you want on the apples. A lot of apples will get very, very ornate. Some of them even get as ornate as a wedding cake. Okay? And as you can see, I had just enough coating to cover up that bare spot that I showed you earlier. And that bare spot's right there. So we'll do a couple more apples just because I'm having fun. Once again, you can see the spin. And when you go into, if you find out that you're going into the apple and you're not getting completely covered on the bottom, that's because you're developing the bell effect, as in underwater breathing. And if you go straight in, you can create an air bubble right here. So when you go in, you want to go in at an angle. So you go in at an angle and then roll yourself straight up. We're going to completely coat this one in peanuts. And this actually happens to be chopped walnuts. And you want to make yourself a well and then just roll your apple in it. If you're going to use icing, decorations, different things like that, if you're going to use an icing, make sure your caramel is cool, and that way the icing piping will not drip off of your apple. Okay. And what we'll do is we'll dip it, and I'll show you the aspect, what I mean about creating the bell effect. If I go straight down and come straight up and then give it a good spin, we'll see if I have the bell effect right where that shoulder is, right where the stem usually goes. Okay. All right, this one just almost got the bell effect, not quite, but that's where you're going to get the bell effect. All right, and just cut that straight off. Once again, take your apple, go in at an angle, submerge it, come up spinning. When you spin, make sure to keep the bottom of the apple inside the can so that your excess caramel can drain into the can so you can put it on another apple. Now what I like to show you is what happens if you don't trim it. What do I need? I need a caramel. Put it in on the bottom and just curl it over, roll it in. Now, if I just take the apple and dip it in, and then just give it a little spin here and there, and if I just sit there and say, okay, I'm done, that's it, and I put it on the paper, in a minute or two, you'll actually start seeing how big of a footprint that apple's on, and actually, you can start seeing that footprint come down now. And I'll move this one out of the way. And you can compare that footprint to this one. Actually, get these out of the way. When you go to put the apples down the cool, make sure you have a parchment paper so that the apple doesn't stick to it and they'll come right up. But as you can begin to see, if you compare this footprint right here to this one, now you can see all that caramel that I'm going to give away free. Even though the consumer likes that, that's not going to help you when it comes to your volume or how many apples you get out of your can. We'll see if this is cool enough just to pick up. We'll have to wait for that to cool down. Our clamshell, when you go to put an apple that has nothing on it, okay, no dips or anything on the apple itself, and the part that's going to really make an effect is the large shoulder right here, and that's the part that's going to touch our clamshell. So we put the apple in there, we close our clamshell, and if the apple isn't cool, and this one's cooling down, it's going to stick to the bubble. Now what you want to do is you want to make sure that your apple's cool, so you just don't dip it, put it on the paper, pick it up, which will stick to the paper, okay, and then put it right into your shell, because what's going to happen is the caramel's going to stick all to the shell, and when the customer goes to pull it out, and he says, wow, that looks great, he's going to pull out a nooey gooey mess. So please be sure that your apples are cold, the caramel is cooled down to where it doesn't stick. That's how we do caramel apples. We can do a caramel apple and we can do a chocolate apple. The chocolate is a new product. It's one of those things that we felt would be very popular. Chocolate is a very popular flavor, and the apple is very good. With that all said and done, if you have any questions, please call us, contact your nearest gold medal dealer, or contact myself, and we'll be happy to help you in any way we can, recommending products, recommending techniques. So once again, caramel apples, and I want to thank you very much.